The Walt Disney Company is in trouble. Its last 4 high-profile releases bombed at the box office, losing over $1 billion between them. It was once Hollywood's most successful film studio, but Disney was dethroned last year by Universal Pictures. The reason for Disney's decline? It has gone woke to an almost comical degree. Last year, the company admitted to investors that there was a growing misalignment between Disney's output and consumer tastes and preferences.
To understand how things are up here.
Consumers' perceptions of our position on the matters of public interest, it said, are putting the corporation's reputation and profits at risk. Viewing figures and box office sales bear this out. Audiences are growing sick of the woke slop Disney has been serving them. They are tired of scripts that are weighed down by clunky political messaging.
You've got to do better, Senator.
They are fed up with storylines being mangled to fit progressive narratives. And they are irked by Disney's desire to lecture them instead of entertain them.
You have to understand how things are up here.
Even Disney's biggest franchises, which were once guaranteed moneymakers, have struggled to excite audiences of late. Marvel Studios, which is owned by Disney, used to regularly break box office records with its billion-dollar superhero films. In 2019, Avengers Endgame became the second highest grossing movie of all time. But last year, Marvel registered its worst year at the box office, ever. Its biggest flop last year was The Marvels, which failed to break even. One reason it did so badly was that it features none of the characters audiences are most familiar with. Instead of the beloved, well-established heroes like Captain America or Iron Man, The Marvels focuses on an ensemble of diverse newcomers. And so we are served up the adventures of Ms. Marvel, a Muslim teen superhero from the Ms. Marvel TV miniseries, and Monica Rambeau, a black female side character from the WandaVision miniseries. Practically all new Disney films place a huge emphasis on superficial diversity. Kerry Burke, president of Disney's General Entertainment Content Division, said in a leaked video in 2022 that she wants 50% of all Disney characters to be either LGBT or ethnic minority. Similarly, LaToya Raveno, the executive producer of Disney Television Animation, has said she is adding queerness wherever she can to the shows she oversees.
Wherever I could, just basically adding queerness.
Of course, no one is against diverse characters on principle. Like any other character, they just need to be compelling and have depth. But all too often, the inclusion of diverse roles in Disney productions feels more like a tick box exercise designed purely to meet a quota. Meanwhile, these new roles often seem to come at the cost of more familiar faces. It's as if these diverse characters are only on screen to send a message, to remind the public that diversity is our strength, rather than to drive the plot forward or to engage the audience. These characters are often poorly written and grating to boot. Captain Marvel, played by Brie Larson, is supposed to be the main draw of the Marvels. She even starred in her own film, Captain Marvel, back in 2019. But like so many female protagonists these days, she is the stereotypical girl boss. She comes across as smug and condescending. She beats enemies with ease and brags about her powers.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
Perhaps Disney's most egregious use of the girl boss trope was in SheHulk, Attorney at Law, a show which really has to be seen to be believed. This Disney Plus series followed a Hulk-type character, except, as the title suggests, she's a woman. And a lawyer. She's a strong female character who delivers lectures about why catcalling is bad.
Just remember whose show this actually is.
To the surprise of precisely no one, She-Hulk went down like a cup of cold sick with many Marvel diehards. It seems the public aren't particularly interested in watching these unfamiliar characters talking down to them for 100+ minutes. Nor are they going to spend hours watching endless spin-offs on Disney Plus if they suspect these series are just lectures in disguise. Disney's Pixar, the studio behind some of the biggest animated hits of the modern era, is now awash with identity politics too. Even when its output isn't excessively preachy, it now seems to trumpet diversity at the expense of good storytelling. Take its 2023 movie, Elemental, the worst performing release in Pixar's history. It tells the story of a fire character and a water character falling in love. The film is inoffensive enough, even if its subtext about overcoming racism is not all that subtle. What executives were most proud of, however, was the fact that Elemental contained Disney's first non-binary character, a lake who wears earrings and goes by they-them pronouns and is voiced by a non-binary actor. The character, called Lake Ripple, plays such a small part in the film that they, doesn't even appear in the credits. But they were still everywhere in the film's marketing and media campaign. Studio executives seem to think that the public is constantly clamoring for more firsts such as this, or perhaps they are shamelessly using them to generate more publicity. Either way, it clearly isn't a winning strategy. Disney's preoccupation with diversity can often feel like an attempt to distract from its otherwise pedestrian output. Its 2023 live-action remake of The Little Mermaid, in which black actress Halle Bailey was cast as Ariel, is another case in point. Although some might have seen this blockbuster remake as a sad day for redhead representation, most members of the public were distinctly unbothered by the prospect of a black Ariel. Once again, few people are opposed to diverse casting in and of itself. Predictably, there were some tedious tweaks to the story, including new lyrics in Kiss the Girl, emphasizing the importance of consent, but the film's main problem was that it was boring and uninspired. Although Disney was hailed in the media for its inspirational casting, The Little Mermaid performed worse than expected when it hit the screens, barely breaking even. No amount of diversity hype can make up for a dull film, it seems. Snow White is next up for a woke reboot. It's slated for release next year, and already its prospects aren't looking good. Ever since she was announced as the new Snow White, star Rachel Zegler has taken every opportunity to trash the source material as sexist and outdated. She has called the film's love story weird and accused Prince Charming of having literally stalked Snow White.
Weird.
Ziegler claims that this new updated version will focus less on romance and true love, and more on women being in roles of power. This all might sound thrilling to a women's studies graduate, but what about the young girls the film is supposed to appeal to? And what about the adults who feel nostalgic for the original? Ziegler has essentially branded their tastes as bigoted and backward. Listening to her various interviews, you get the distinct impression that Disney now loathes its canon and its audience. Time and time again, Disney has gone out of its way to alienate and insult the core fan bases of its franchises. After Disney acquired Lucasfilm Studios in 2012, Star Wars fans feared the franchise was about to be given a feminist progressive makeover. Disney executive Kathleen Kennedy was even pictured wearing a t-shirt saying, "The Force is female," whatever that means.
Put a ticket in, make a living gay!
The Force Awakens, Disney's first Star Wars film, performed well when it came out in 2015. But as the rest of the new Disney trilogy dragged on, the box office numbers trailed off. Some of the spin-off movies and series also fared pretty poorly with audiences. The only thing many of the new productions had to shout about was, you guessed it, their diverse casting. So when fans made their displeasure with the new movies known, they were dismissed as bigots and trolls. The Star Wars cast and crew even got into a bizarre war of words with the fanbase in 2018, after Kelly Marie Tran, who played Rose Tico in The Last Jedi, left social media following alleged trolling by fans. Something Rian Johnson, director of The Last Jedi, blamed on the man babies among the Star Wars audience, upset with its new direction. When Disney isn't infuriating its own audiences, it is cancelling its own actors. In 2021, Gina Carano, who starred in the Star Wars spin-off series The Mandalorian, shared an Instagram story comparing being a Republican in 21st century America to being Jewish during the Holocaust. Carano was almost immediately fired by Disney for denigrating people based on their cultural and religious identities. The comparison was in poor taste for sure, but to smear Carano as an anti-Semite, not least when Hollywood A-listers had spent much of the previous 5 years comparing Trump's America to Nazi Germany, was obviously wrong and insanely hypocritical. Carano maintains that the real reason she was fired was because she is an outspoken conservative, who has mocked woke practices like stating preferred pronouns. She is now suing Disney for wrongful termination, and is being backed in this fight by Elon Musk. Disney has even taken to making political interventions out in the real world. Since 2022, in the US state of Florida, home to Disney's biggest theme park and resort, the Walt Disney Company has been locked in a fierce battle with Governor Ron DeSantis over something entirely unrelated to Disney's business interests, namely the role of trans ideology in schools. DeSantis' Parental Rights and Education Act bans classroom instructions on issues of sexual orientation or gender identity for school kids under the age of 10. Disney, apparently outraged by the prospect of preteens being denied their indoctrination, pledged to donate $5 million to organizations opposing the law. In retaliation, DeSantis revoked the special tax status that the Walt Disney World Resort has enjoyed since the 1960s. Not only did this spat cost Disney its tax breaks, it also damaged its image as a family-friendly company. Most parents agreed with DeSantis that gender ideology is an inappropriate subject for under 10s, and were baffled that Disney would suggest otherwise. After this skirmish with DeSantis, Disney's approval rating among Americans tumbled by more than 25 percentage points. The woes facing Disney illustrate the powerful hold wokeness now has on big corporations. It's as if Disney's leaders felt so compelled to toe the line on the identitarian agenda that they forgot their primary role is to entertain. They were prepared to trash the company's reputation and alienate its fans, seemingly just to signal their allegiance to this new elite ideology. Perhaps those billion-dollar losses will finally break the spell.